The heavy air of opulence and despair choked Lena, each decisive strike of the gavel echoing like a gunshot in her chest, a piece of her soul shattering with every escalating bid. She could barely breathe, her lungs ablaze, her heart an erratic drum threatening to burst. Here, at the epicenter of the Apex Summit in Manhattan, where the blinding gleam of crystal chandeliers vied with the shimmer of diamonds on ladies' necks and men's wrists, human dignity was the newest currency. Lena Abbott, a young American woman in her early 20s, stood on a small dais, her eyes wide with dread, her body trembling beneath a simple dress that starkly contrasted with the obscene opulence of the room. She was the rarest asset of the evening, as the facilitator's unctuous voice announced, a cruel euphemism for the abject truth. She was a commodity. Her crime? None. Her fault? None. Her fate, however, was sealed by the irresponsibility and greed of Victor Sterling, her stepfather. That man who once promised love and protection to her mother, and whom she, in her naivety, had come to consider a paternal figure, had revealed himself as a bottomless pit of dishonesty. Colossal financial frauds, monumental debts that would make any serious businessman tremble, and the fear of imminent imprisonment drove him to an act Lena would never have imagined in her worst nightmares. Negotiating his stepdaughter, his own flesh and blood by affinity, to cover the black holes of his schemes. He needed an exorbitant sum to fix everything, to escape the clutches of the law and the public scrutiny that would drag him to total ruin. And for this, he did not hesitate to market Lena as if she were a soulless object, an asset to be liquidated. Lena felt the heavy stares of the attendees upon her, each one a sting, a wound to her already fragile self-esteem. She was virginal, naive, a girl who dreamed of a normal life in her Midwest town, of true love, of the chance to build her own future. Now she stood there, exposed, her innocence a spectacle, her vulnerability an invitation to covetousness. Her hands were clammy and a knot tightened in her throat, preventing her from screaming, from protesting such injustice. Her stepfather, Victor Sterling, sat in one of the back rows, hidden in the shadows, his face pale and sweating, avoiding his stepdaughter's gaze. A coward, a rat who traded her dignity for his own skin. The shame Lena felt was a burden heavier than any chain. Suddenly a silence fell over the hall, a pause before the storm. And then he emerged, imposing. A shadow amidst the light, Kian Thorne occupied his VIP box, a veritable throne amidst the opulence. His eyes, a deep and enigmatic shade, fixed on Lena with a glacial intensity that made the young woman tremble even more. He was not like the other men there, with their leering smiles and blatant stares. In Kian there was a gravity, an aura of unquestionable power, but also a calculated, almost surgical coldness. He did not participate in this negotiation for carnal desire, for a momentary whim of a bored billionaire. No, Kian Thorne's motivation was different, deeper, more intrinsic to his being. He needed an heir. His legacy, the Thorne legacy, depended on it. The loss of his family in an inexplicable tragedy had left a scar not only on his soul, but also on the future of his empire. He saw Lena not as a woman to be loved, but as a means to an end, an incubator, a vessel to perpetuate his lineage. It was a sense of duty, a calculated, cold, and seemingly emotionless necessity. But behind that facade of indifference, Lena could feel an overwhelming force, a presence that dominated the entire environment. The facilitator, aware of Kian's presence, raised his voice, describing Lena with adjectives that made her feel like a displayed piece of meat. Who will secure this rare gem? Virginal, untouched, perfect for... The facilitator's voice faded into a murmur of initial offers, but Kian's eyes never left Lena. She was a blank canvas for him, a future to be shaped, a promise of continuity for his empire. The question hung in the air, dense and suffocating. How could a common young woman taken from her simple life in the Midwest survive such a cruel and merciless fate? What would be the price of her freedom if such a word still held any meaning for her? Or more precisely, what would be the price of her ownership of her existence as an acquired asset? The offers climbed, figures Lena could never have imagined existing. exchanged like pocket change. She saw powerful men with incalculable fortunes vying for her possession as if she were an exotic trophy. The terror in her eyes deepened, and a solitary tear trickled down her face, mixing with the cold sweat. She was lost completely at the mercy of forces she could neither comprehend nor combat. And then, an offer that silenced everyone. A figure so exorbitant that murmurs ceased and glances turned to the VIP box. Kian Thorne's voice was grave, unwavering, laden with an authority that brooked no dispute. $100 million. The figure, a staggering sum, shocked everyone. An offer so disproportionate it left no doubt. He desired her at any cost. The facilitator, his voice choked with surprise and the ecstasy of the amount, raised his gavel. 1, 2, and then the gavel struck. A dry, fatal sound, which echoed in Lena's soul like a gunshot, sealing her destiny. Finalized for Kian Thorne. The final word hung in the air, cold and definitive. Lena Abbott, the American girl of simple dreams, was now a possession. She was his. The gavel's final, echoing thud vibrated through Lena Abbott's very soul, not just the opulent chamber. A chilling dread clawed its way up her spine, freezing every fiber of her being. Before she could even grasp the enormity of what had transpired, firm, yet not unkind hands guided her off the platform, through lavish corridors that seemed to mock her despair with their indifferent grandeur. There was no time for goodbyes, no chance for a final glance of reproach at her stepfather, Victor Sterling, who had seemingly vanished into the rarefied air of colossal wealth. Lena was led directly to a private helicopter, its rotors already churning on an exclusive landing pad atop the skyscraper. The deafening roar of the blades seemed to shred her very freedom into 1,000 fragments, as the sleek silver machine ascended into Manhattan's night sky, sweeping her towards an unknown fate. The journey was a blur of city lights, fading into the vast, dark expanse of the ocean. Lena felt tiny and inconsequential, a grain of sand lost in the immensity. Her heart hammered an erratic rhythm, a potent cocktail of fear and a burgeoning rage fueling her every beat. How could a girl from the Midwest, raised with grounded simplicity and the wide-open skies, be living such a surreal nightmare? She clenched her hands, nails digging into her palms, a futile attempt to anchor herself to the reality she once knew. The helicopter descended smoothly onto an island that seemed to have materialized from nothing amidst the ocean, Blackwood Estate. As she disembarked, Lena was enveloped by a warm, fragrant breeze, a stark contrast to the gnawing anguish consuming her. Before her stretched a sprawling estate that defied imagination, modern, imposing architecture, with gilded accents and polished marble gleaming under strategically placed lights, lush gardens boasting plant species she'd never encountered, and fountains that cascaded crystal-clear water in gentle streams. It was paradise, without question. But for Lena, it was the most beautiful, most opulent prison conceivable. Cutting-edge technology was ubiquitous, from automatic doors that slid open silently to electric vehicles gliding noiselessly along the pathways. Everything here exuded power and absolute control. She was led to a suite that would make any European monarch blush with envy. The room was vast, dominated by a king-size bed adorned with the finest silks and a panoramic ocean view that stretched to the very horizon. But the breathtaking beauty failed to move her. Lena felt like an object, an expensive piece of art, merely displayed in a museum of luxury. The crushing solitude was overwhelming. A short while later, the door swung open and Kian Thorne entered. His imposing presence filled the room, an aura of unquestionable authority that made her shrink inward. He wore meticulously tailored attire that accentuated his formidable physique, and his dark eyes fixed on her with an intensity that stole her breath. There was no trace of kindness, only the cold, calculated demeanor of a ruthless magnate. "Lena Abbott," he began, his voice deep and resonant, yet infused with an unyielding firmness that brooked no argument. "Welcome to Blackwood Estate. You are now my acquisition." Lena flinched. The words struck her like a physical blow. "Acquisition? I am not an object, Kian Thorne. I am a person, a woman." He took a step forward, closing the distance between them. Your stepfather, Victor Sterling, made you an object when he put you forward in a high-stakes negotiation to settle his debts. I secured the contract for a fortune. A colossal investment, I might add. His eyes swept over her body with a languid slowness that made her flush. And every investment expects a return. Return? What do you want from me? Money? I have nothing, she managed. It is not money I seek, Lena. It is something far more valuable to me and to the Thorn legacy. I require an heir, a true son to perpetuate my lineage. That is your purpose here. That is why your contract was secured. The air seemed to thin, suffocating her. An heir. The words spun in her mind, clashing violently with her innocence and the brutal reality. Lena was a virgin, a girl who dreamed of storybook love, not a reproductive contract. Fear mingled with a surge of fury, and she felt tears welling, but she fought them back with every ounce of strength. She would not cry in front of him. "You cannot do this. I am not an incubator. I am not an animal to be used like this," she exclaimed, her voice thick with raw emotion. Kian's expression remained unyielding. "Your stepfather's debt is now your obligation to me, an unbreakable covenant signed with my capital, and the only way to discharge it is by bearing my son. You will provide me an heir. On this bed," he gestured towards the sumptuous bed, "you will fulfill your purpose." The glacial chill of his words paralyzed her. His authority was unquestionable, his power absolute. Lena felt the ground vanish beneath her feet. She tried to argue again, to plead for her freedom, for her dignity, but the words snagged in her throat. He did not hear her, did not see her as a human being, merely as a means to an end. Driven by a sudden, desperate impulse, a spark of her former Midwestern life, of her freedom, she spun around and bolted. She flung open the suite door and fled down the palace corridors, her bare feet barely grazing the cold marble. She ran aimlessly, through the sprawling gardens that had once seemed paradise, now a green labyrinth trapping her. She sought an exit, a gate, a boat, anything that could wrench her from this place. Her heart pounded like a frantic drum, but a drum of sheer desperation. Sweat streamed down her face, tears finally mingling with it. "Please, someone help me," she thought, but there was no one to hear her, only the breeze and the gentle murmur of the fountains. She spotted a tall hedge and raced towards it, hoping for something beyond. But before she could even touch it, two robust figures emerged from the shadows, Kian's security detail, clad in discreet yet formidable uniforms. They intercepted her with unnerving ease, without violence, but with an unyielding grip that left no room for doubt. Their strong hands held her arms, and without a single word they escorted her back to the sprawling estate, to the suite, to Kian's formidable presence. He stood precisely where she had left him, observing her with a gaze Lena could not decipher. There was no anger, only a silent confirmation of his absolute power. "I told you, Lena, there is nowhere to go. You are on Blackwood Estate, and you are mine." The oppressive silence of Kian Thorne's private jet was almost as suffocating as the grim certainty of her destination. Lena felt the solid ground beneath her feet as the hatch opened, revealing a paradise seemingly torn from a postcard and meticulously transplanted. Blackwood Estate was a spectacle of towering royal palms, white sands, and a sea of such intense blue it appeared painted. But to her it was merely a gilded prison, a luxurious captivity. She was led by silent attendants through lush gardens, past marble fountains spouting crystal-clear water and exotic fragrant flowers, towards a mansion defying imagination. Her assigned quarters boasted opulence fit for any screen siren: silks, brocades, intricately carved furniture, and a panoramic ocean view stretching to the horizon. An immense four-poster bed draped in sheer fabrics seemed to swallow her, a constant looming reminder of the contract that sealed her destiny. Yet beneath the splendor, the crushing sensation of being a captive intensified. A golden cage, yes, but a cage nonetheless. Kian was not long in appearing. He entered her chambers with the same formidable presence he had wielded the first time she saw him, his dark eyes sweeping the room before settling on her with an intensity that stole her breath. There was no kindness in his gaze, only the stark, calculating coldness of a man accustomed to obtaining what he desired. He did not sit. He remained standing, his sheer presence dominating the vast space. "Lena Abbott," he began, his grave voice resonating in the silent room. You are now at Blackwood Estate, my home, and here, my rules are the only law." He paused, letting his words settle. "Your purpose here is clear, with no room for deviation. You will give me an heir, a child for the Thorne legacy." Lena felt a shiver snake down her spine. The way he spoke, as if she were a tool, was dehumanizing. I understand," she murmured, clutching at dignity. "But when? How?" "Time is essential," Kian continued, disregarding her hesitation. "The Thorne lineage is ancient and sacred. My corporation expects a successor, and the perpetuation of my name is a matter of honor and duty, transcending any personal desire. You have 8 months starting today to become pregnant. If you fail, the consequences will be severe." The deadline struck her like a brutal blow to the gut. 8 months? It was a harrowing countdown to something she barely comprehended, stripping her of any last vestige of control over her own body. 8 months, she repeated, struggling to process it. And what if it doesn't happen? A glacial gleam flickered in Kian's eyes. That is not a possibility. You are here to fulfill a purpose. And there is another matter. Your stepfather, Victor Sterling. At the mention of Victor Sterling's name, Lena felt a visceral tightening in her chest. "What about him?" she demanded, fear mingling inextricably with rage. She knew he was the architect of her misfortune, yet a persistent thread of apprehension remained. "His fate rests squarely in your hands, Lena," Kian declared, his voice utterly devoid of all emotion. "The contract we sealed at the Apex Summit included more than just your acquisition. Victor Sterling's creditors agreed to defer his imprisonment and bankruptcy proceedings, provided you fulfill your part of the agreement. If you give me an heir within the stipulated time frame, he will be spared. His colossal debts will be restructured, and he may start anew under my rigorous supervision, of course. But if you fail..." Kian allowed the phrase to hang ominously in the air, its implicit meaning far more terrifying than any explicit threat. "He will face the full, unyielding extent of American justice without any protection. He will go to prison, and his extensive frauds will be exposed for the entire world to see. It will be utter, irreversible ruin, with no chance of recovery." Lena staggered, feeling the air thin in her lungs. It was the second cruel twist, and this one was even more merciless. It wasn't merely about her. It was about Victor Sterling's very life, the man who had sold her, yet ironically now depended entirely on her for his freedom. She was ensnared in a tightening spider's web, and every desperate move she made seemed only to constrict the knots further. You can't do this," she erupted, pure desperation consuming her. "This is blatant blackmail. It's immoral. He's a criminal, yes, but his life cannot be used as a bargaining chip." Kian remained impassive, his expression carved from granite. "I can, and I will. Morality, in this cold instance, is a luxury neither of us can truly afford, especially you. What would truly be immoral is to allow my legacy to perish. What would be immoral is not to ensure the security and future prosperity of my holdings. You are a means to an end, Lena, a necessary means." She desperately tried to find loopholes, some plausible escape from that cold, unyielding logic. But what if I genuinely can't? What if my own body simply won't cooperate? That's not under my conscious control. "You are a young, perfectly healthy woman," Kian retorted, without the slightest falter. "The estate doctors will conduct all necessary examinations to ensure you are in perfect condition. Everything required will be done to ensure absolute success. There is no conceivable room for what-ifs." His eyes pierced her, conveying an almost chilling, unshakable resolve. "My demands are undeniably clear, and the consequences equally so. Think of your stepfather, Lena. Think of what he will irrevocably lose if you do not fulfill your designated role. That was the final, utterly crushing blow. The agonizing certainty that there was no conceivable escape, that her destiny and Victor Sterling's were twisted together in a perverse, inescapable knot of fate." She felt a choked sob rising fiercely in her throat, her eyes brimming with unshed tears, but she steadfastly refused to weep before him. She would not grant him that profound satisfaction. Kian, having delivered his chilling, absolute decree, turned abruptly to depart, his tailored suit coat billowing subtly with the powerful movement. Yet, as he strode away towards the heavy door, Lena watched him intently. For one fleeting instant, a glimmer of profound, aching melancholy flickered in Kian's dark, fathomless eyes, an almost imperceptible crack in his formidable armor of frigidity. It was a rapid glimpse, like a sudden, searing flash of lightning in a truly moonless night, but it was powerfully enough to ignite a small, persistent flame of burning curiosity within Lena. Who was this impenetrable man? What hidden torment, what profound sorrow, truly lurked beneath that unyielding facade of immense power and calculated inhumanity? The answer seemed to arrive with the night, carrying with it a dark and inevitable promise. In that gilded yet suffocating paradise of Blackwood Estate, each setting sunbeam was a grim reminder of what the encroaching darkness might hold. Lena felt like a prisoner of luxury, her days filled with a hollow routine, her thoughts consumed by the dread of the unknown. The island's silence was a heavy burden, as weighty as the gold adorning every corner of her lavish quarters. She attempted to distract herself, exploring the lush gardens that seemed more like a stage from a lavish drama. Yet anxiety was a constant shadow, trailing her between the swaying palms and bubbling fountains. One night, the door to her quarters swung open, and one of the staff, with a respectful yet firm gaze, informed her that Kian Thorne awaited her. Lena's heart slammed, an uneven drumbeat in her chest. It was time. That moment she had dreaded since the Apex Summit asset negotiation, since the dominant titan had secured her under contract to bear an heir. Her lungs seemed to refuse air, and her hands trembled, revealing a fragility she tried to conceal even from herself. With trembling legs, she followed the staff member through vast, richly adorned corridors, each step carrying her closer to the inevitable. Kian's estate was not merely a residence. It was a testament to his power and wealth, a labyrinth of marble and silk that seemed to swallow any remnant of individuality. Upon entering Kian's private chambers, the air grew heavier, imbued with a woody, masculine scent that stole her breath. Kian stood imposing, his lean, muscular silhouette outlined by the soft glow of a single lamp. His dark eyes, as profound as a desert night, fixed on her with an intensity that made her shrink inward. He offered no good evening or any other formality. His grave, authoritative voice filled the silence, echoing the phrase that had haunted Lena's thoughts since the day she met him. "In this bed, you will give me an heir." The declaration was no request, but an order, cold and irrefutable, uttered with the certainty of one who expected immediate obedience. Lena's stomach churned. She was a virgin, a girl who had dreamed of a romantic drama's love, not a reproductive contract. Terror consumed her, paralyzing every muscle in her body. She felt her blood run cold in her veins. Her hands grew clammy and a knot formed in her throat, choking back any response. Kian stepped forward, and his mere approach made Lena's self-preservation instinct scream. Her eyes widened, and she recoiled a step, then another, like a cornered, trapped animal. It was no defiance, no act of calculated rebellion. It was pure, unadulterated terror. A muffled sob escaped her lips, and tears, which she had fought with every fiber of her being, began to stream down her face, hot and uncontrollable. She clutched herself, a desperate attempt to protect, to become invisible before this man who loomed like a nightmare creature plucked from her deepest fears. Lena's reaction was a shock to Kian. He, Kian Thorne, accustomed to having his every word obeyed, every desire met without question, found himself before a woman who trembled not from submission, but from a visceral dread that bordered on raw panic. His cold eyes, which had witnessed battles and betrayals, scrutinized the small figure before him. He had expected a doll, a passive vessel, but instead encountered a terror-stricken creature whose vulnerability was so palpable it almost made him hesitate. The submission he anticipated was one thing, absolute terror was quite another. She was not resisting out of caprice, but from a trauma that he, within his insulated sphere of power, had never truly fathomed. A slight furrow of his brow creased Kian's face. He could not force a woman to bear a true heir if she were in such a profound state of panic. Pragmatism, which had always guided him, superseded his impatience. An heir worthy of the Thorn legacy required more than a mere physical act. It demanded a modicum of receptiveness, a cooperation that, at this moment, Lena was utterly incapable of offering. To force her would be futile, perhaps even detrimental to his ultimate objective. With an almost imperceptible sigh, more akin to a hiss of disapproval, Kian retreated. His eyes still impaled her, but the intensity had shifted from cold demand to a calculated analysis. "Leave," he commanded, his voice still grave, but devoid of its former urgency. "Return to your chambers." The command brought a relief so profound that Lena felt her legs buckle. She did not await a second order. She turned and fled, tripping over her own dignity, leaving behind Kian and the promise of an heir, as swiftly as her legs would carry her. Back in the perceived safety of her quarters, Lena collapsed onto the bed, her body trembling uncontrollably. The tears continued to fall, yet gradually, a new sensation began to surface amidst the chaos of her emotions. He had retreated. Kian Thorn, the man who possessed all and everyone, had receded before her terror. Not out of kindness, she knew, but from a cold, precise calculation. Nonetheless, the seed of an idea began to germinate in her mind. Her vulnerability, her genuine terror, had been paradoxically her sole defense. She possessed no power, no wealth, no status, but she harbored her own humanity, her fragility, and somehow it had yielded an unexpected effect. The dynamic between them, she realized, would not be as simple as a buyer and his chattel. Kian, in his relentless pursuit of an heir, had encountered something that could neither be bought nor commanded, the innate instinct of a woman. That night, Lena not only escaped a dreaded fate, but also glimpsed a sliver of light in her gilded prison, a faint glimmer that perhaps, just perhaps, she was not entirely at the mercy of the dominant titan. The fear remained stark, yet it was now accompanied by a tenuous but persistent spark of hope and a nascent understanding of herself. The days bled into weeks at the Blackwood estate, each dawn and dusk a stark reminder of the reality into which Lena Abbott had been thrust. The mansion's opulence, the crystal-clear waters kissing the white sand, all seemed a dream, yet the gilded cage was real, and her captor, Kian Thorn, remained as enigmatic as on the first day. However, forced proximity and daily routine began to peel back the outermost layers of that imposing man. Lena, with her inherent perceptiveness, started to observe him with a different intensity, no longer merely with fear, but with an almost academic curiosity, searching for any flicker of humanity behind the facade of unquestionable authority. She noted the subtle gestures, the gaze that sometimes lost itself on the horizon, the way he interacted with the few older staff members. His interactions with Elias Vance, the chief counsel, were always formal, punctuated by respect and a calculated distance. Elias, a man of few words but striking presence, seemed a silent guardian of Kian's secrets and the traditions of the Thorn legacy. He spoke of duty, of lineage, of the imperative of an heir for the Empire's stability, but always with a gravity that transcended mere bureaucracy. Lena, keenly observant, discerned a veiled melancholy in his eyes, a weight that did not solely stem from concern for the future, but seemed to carry echoes of a painful past. It was with the estate's eldest housekeeper, a woman with sweet features and deep wrinkles that spoke of bygone eras, that Lena found a loose thread to pull. The housekeeper, whose name Lena learned was Agnes Macmillan, was loyal to Kian as his own shadow. Yet her maternal nature could not entirely conceal her compassion. As Lena assisted with small tasks in the gardens or kitchen during shared moments of silence, Agnes let slip fragments. "Mr. Thorn carries a heavy burden, my dear. A burden few comprehend," she murmured, eyes glistening as she served aromatic tea. "He was so different before." The joy vanished with them. Lena absorbed every syllable, every sigh, every glance from Agnes. She began to assemble an invisible puzzle, piecing together Elias's words about duty and the housekeeper's whispered laments about a lost joy. The Blackwood estate, so vibrant with exuberant life, seemed to harbor a profound, almost palpable grief that permeated the mansion's corridors and flowering gardens. The pursuit of an heir, once perceived as a cold, selfish imposition, began to take on the contours of a desperate need, almost an obsession. One afternoon, while walking alone along one of the less frequented garden paths, Lena discovered a small, secluded sanctuary, hidden among tall palms and exotic blooms. It was not a place of public prayer, but an intimate memorial, with framed photographs and personal effects protected by glass. There she saw a picture of a smiling woman with gentle eyes and a delicate veil, alongside a younger man, unequivocally Kian, but with a sparkle in his eyes she had never witnessed. In another photo, a small boy with the same mischievous smile played in the sand. An inscription was etched into the stone, and though Lena could not read it, the image spoke for itself. Agnes, who had silently followed her, found her there, eyes fixed on the photographs. "Mr. Thorne's wife, Eleanor, and young Arthur," Agnes whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "They were lost many years ago in a terrible accident, a day of celebration that turned to tragedy. The boat, an unexpected squall off the Keys. Mr. Thorne was never the same. He loved them more than anything." The revelation struck Lena with the force of a tidal wave. That dominating giant who seemed carved from stone now revealed deep fissures, chasms of grief that, no matter how hard she tried, she could not ignore. The tragic loss of his wife and son, years prior. The pursuit of an heir was no longer merely a matter of power or whim, but a desperate attempt to fill an immense void, to honor an interrupted legacy, to heal a wound that still bled in his soul. Who would have thought? The cold man who had acquired her like an object carried a grief so profound it seemed to shape every aspect of his existence. Kian's humanity, until then an impenetrable mystery, unveiled itself before her. He was not merely a cold, calculating individual, but someone tormented by emotional scars and a deep mourning that propelled him. The demand for a child ceased to be an arbitrary imposition and acquired a context of bereavement, duty to his legacy, and the desperate need to perpetuate a lineage he believed was threatened by tragedy. A pang of empathy, a feeling she had not expected to harbor for her acquirer, blossomed in her chest. It was a strange, unsettling, yet undeniable emotion. The image of Kian Thorne in her mind began to transform. He was no longer merely the oppressor, the despot who had torn her from her life, but a complex man who concealed monumental sorrow beneath an armor of coldness and authority. The harshness she had so feared now seemed a protective cloak, a barrier against the world and against his own pain. Lena began to discern the complexity behind his severity, to understand that, like her, he too was a prisoner of his circumstances, albeit in a vastly different manner. The estate, which before had seemed merely a gilded cage, now revealed itself also as a sanctuary of mourning and a fortress of duty. The breeze, which once carried the scent of jasmine and the promise of a new day, now bore a fragile air of apprehension across Blackwood Estate. Lena felt it on her skin, a subtle chill unrelated to the mild temperature. The servants' smiles seemed more strained, their steps more hurried. Whispered conversations ceased abruptly as she approached, and furtive glances followed her through the mansion's opulent corridors. Kian, for his part, grew more distant, more taciturn. The facade of the impeccable magnate now revealed cracks of palpable worry. His nights were short and restless, and Lena discerned the palpable tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes scoured the horizon, no longer in serene contemplation, but in stark vigilance. The island, once an untouchable sanctuary, now seemed tragically permeable to something sinister. Lena observed the intensified security. More guards patrolled the lush gardens. Surveillance cameras were scrutinized with unusual frequency, and even the drones hovering over the estate appeared more numerous and acutely vigilant. It wasn't merely her under scrutiny, it was everything, every luxurious corner of that private paradise. One night, while Kian was in an urgent meeting and Lena sought solace in a book within the library, a momentary power glitch swept through a section of the mansion. It wasn't a total blackout, but a fleeting flicker of lights that impacted only the east wing, housing the security and communication servers. In mere seconds, normalcy returned, yet Lena perceived the silent panic in the eyes of the housekeeper, a woman named Agnes Macmillan, who served her with a blend of profound respect and maternal affection. Agnes, a middle-aged woman with expressive eyes and meticulously kept grey hair, who had previously shared veiled anecdotes of the Thorne family legacy with Lena, appeared genuinely shaken by the incident. "Do not trouble yourself, Miss Lena," Agnes uttered, her voice a touch more tremulous than usual. "It is merely a fluctuation. It happens at times." But Lena felt an unspoken truth lingering beneath the placid words. The following morning, over breakfast, she overheard fragments of a conversation between Kian and Elias Vance, his chief advisor. They spoke of infiltration attempts and compromised confidential documents. The name of Lena's stepfather, Victor Sterling, briefly surfaced in the discussion, but Kian swiftly silenced it with an irritated gesture. It was painfully evident that the situation was dire, and the estate, indeed the very Thorne legacy, stood under imminent threat. A cold vice tightened around Lena's heart. She had arrived there as an investment, a mere pawn in a high-stakes game of power and crippling debts. Yet in recent months, the forced cohabitation with Kian had unveiled profound layers of a complex, tormented man, and beneath his formidable exterior, one of profound honor. He was not merely her captor, he was the magnate, the formidable leader of an empire, and he was under siege. By chilling extension, her own fragile security was also gravely imperiled. The notion that someone could harm Kian or destabilize the island that, however incongruously, had become her gilded cage and nascent home, filled her with a consuming rage and a fear she had not anticipated. That incident was the second profound shift. Lena realized Kian's safety was now in peril, and by terrifying extension, her own. She began to perceive Kian not merely as her formidable captor, but as a man vulnerable to threats that could engulf everyone on the estate, a realization that compelled her to reevaluate her stance and ponder an improbable alliance. The initial terror of that dominating man had been supplanted by an arcane blend of admiration, burgeoning affection, and a fervent, undeniable need to shield him. She could no longer remain a passive observer. That same afternoon, Agnes called her to assist in organizing some fabrics within the linen closet. As Lena folded silken sheets, Agnes, her voice barely a whisper, murmured, "Miss Lena, you are a perceptive woman. Your eyes discern more than many here. Exercise caution. Not all is as it appears. And Kian. He has many adversaries, some closer than he dares to imagine." Lena paused her folding, her gaze locking onto Agnes. "What do you mean, Agnes?" The housekeeper offered only a melancholic smile and gestured to a small embroidered emblem on one of the sheets, a traditional Thorne legacy crest. This symbol represents strength and unity, but even the strongest bonds can be unraveled by a loose thread. Attend to the details. Small things can unveil profound truths. Agnes then departed, leaving Lena engulfed in a maelstrom of thoughts. It was an unexpected, subtle alliance, planting the seeds of their future collaboration. From that day forward, Lena became an even more acute observer. She noticed that one of the guards, a burly man named Gareth Cross, seemed perpetually present during technical glitches or when crucial documents were referenced. She also perceived that Elias, though fiercely loyal, appeared under immense crushing pressure, his shoulders growing increasingly stooped and his encounters with Kian becoming more frequent and intensely heated. Lena's opportunity for decisive action arose during a formal dinner, where Kian hosted high-profile business associates. The atmosphere was taut with unspoken tensions, and Kian appeared profoundly exhausted. During the meal, Lena observed Gareth Cross subtly passing a small note to one of the servers, who discreetly conveyed it to a guest. The exchange was swift, almost imperceptible. Yet Lena's keen eyes seized upon it. Both curiosity and a chilling apprehension propelled her. Later, as the mansion succumbed to a fragile silence, Lena recalled Agnes's cryptic words. She knew, with an undeniable certainty, that she had to find that note. With her heart a frantic drum against her ribs, she stealthily navigated to the kitchen, where the remnants of the elaborate dinner were being cleared. There she discovered the server who had conveyed the note, a startled young man hastily wiping down a counter. Lena, her voice a soft yet resolute command, accosted him. "You know that Kian Thorne places his trust in all of us, don't you?" she inquired. The young man nodded, evading her piercing gaze. And trust is a rare commodity. What did you deliver to the guest tonight? It was from Gareth, wasn't it? The young man's face blanched. I do not know what Miss is speaking of. Do not lie to me, Lena insisted, her voice acquiring an authority that startled even herself. Kian's life is in peril, yours too. What did Gareth give you? The young man, trembling visibly, finally capitulated. It was a map, miss, with the patrol routes and guard change schedules for the coming week. He said it was for a special supply delivery, but I sensed something profoundly amiss. A glacial shiver traced Lena's spine. A security map. This was no mere supply delivery. This was an invasion. She snatched the map from the young man's trembling hands and concealed it beneath her attire. That night, Lena awaited Kian's return from his protracted meetings. When he finally entered his chambers, exhaustion etched deeply onto his face, Lena confronted him. Kian, we must speak. It is urgent. He looked at her, startled by the stark seriousness in her voice. What has transpired, Lena? She extended the map, unfolding it across the table. This is a map of your patrols. I obtained it from one of the servers. It was delivered to one of your guests today by Gareth Cross. Kian's eyes widened, a storm of comprehension and fury brewing within them. He snatched the map, scrutinizing it with mounting wrath. Gareth, that traitor! But how did you... Lena explained about Agnes, about the hushed whispers, about the power glitch, about her own relentless observation. She recounted everything, courage burgeoning from a place she hadn't known existed within her soul. Kian listened intently, the tempestuous rage on his face slowly yielding to a stunned admiration. You risked your life for me, he rasped, his voice raw with disbelief and burgeoning emotion. Why, Lena? She met his gaze unflinchingly, the unvarnished truth laid bare in her soul. Because this estate has become my home. Because I care for you, Kian. And you are not merely my captor. You are the Thorn Legacy's magnate. And if you fall, everything you have built, everything you protect, will crumble into ruin as well. That very night, the insidious threat was neutralized. Gareth Cross was intercepted before he could abscond, and the conspirators, who had planned a devastating takeover during the supply delivery, were fully exposed. Elias, who had harbored his own suspicions about Gareth, felt a profound relief and an undeniable gratitude for Lena's sharp acumen. Their intricate plot sought to destabilize the Thorn Legacy, plunder its immense resources, and tarnish Kian's formidable name, likely with the illicit aid of a rival magnate whom Victor Sterling had, in his desperate attempts to settle debts, indiscreetly contacted. The link to Victor Sterling proved tenuous, yet sufficient for Kian to ensure that Lena's stepfather would never again threaten her peace. Kian leveraged his formidable influence, ensuring Victor faced the unsparing consequences of his colossal frauds definitively, but far removed from the sacred grounds of Blackwood Estate. From that momentous day, the relationship between Lena and Kian irrevocably shifted. The oppressive barrier of property and incubator crumbled, revealing a nascent foundation of profound mutual respect, unwavering trust, and a fierce, burgeoning love that had miraculously blossomed amidst the crucible of chaos. Kian no longer perceived her as a mere means to an heir, but as his indispensable partner, his unwavering ally, the woman who had discerned the raw truth in his weary eyes and courageously fought by his side. Months unfurled. Blackwood Estate reverted to its tranquil facade, yet now underpinned by an unshakable stratum of heightened security and fierce loyalty. Lena was no longer a gilded prisoner, but Kian's cherished companion, his most trusted confidant, his queen in spirit and substance. She had claimed her rightful place not through coercive imposition, but through undeniable merit, through indomitable courage, through a love that had defied every cynical expectation. One luminous morning, as the sun ascended over the turquoise waters surrounding Blackwood Estate, Lena and Kian stood hand in hand, gazing at the limitless horizon. She felt a subtle, undeniable flutter within her womb. A soft, radiant smile bloomed on her lips. "Kian," she whispered, her voice laden with profound emotion, "we shall have our heir. But he will be the fruit of our boundless love, not merely the outcome of a decree. Kian embraced her fiercely, pressing a kiss to the crown of her head. The enduring scars of his past still remained, yet the cavernous ache had finally been suffused with the incandescent promise of a shared future.